Sarah and Nathaniel from Read Real Reviews, and we wanted to talk a little bit about vouchers. And we wanted to talk about 5 reasons why we think it's a scam and why we need to contact our reps about it.
Yeah.
And just to share just a little bit about our background in education, I am currently teaching at a public school. I have been to public school, private school, and homeschooled, and I have taught at a private school, a homeschool institution, and a private institution, public.
Yeah. And
All of them.
I was a teacher for a little bit, but I've spent the last 10 years working in finance. So that is my background, which is what you'll see. That's where I'm going to mostly be speaking into at this point. So,
and educationally, you were homeschooled, but
yes,
you went to a public college for
correct.
high school credits.
Correct.
And a private college for your degree.
College. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So the voucher system is a lottery system that is giving up to 100,000 students at first options to spend on different schooling. If you're homeschooled, they'll give you a couple $1,000s. For private school, $10,000, and it would be in an educational savings account, much like an HSA account or a health savings account. And we'll dive more into that, but that is basically what the program is. 5 reasons the voucher system is a scam. Number 1, you go for it.
Yeah, so effectively, you've alluded to this already, but it is a lottery system. So it comes off when they say it, it's like, oh, this is going to be an option for everybody, but it is objectively not going to be an option for everybody. Financially, that would be impossible, really. And at the end of the day, there are so many students in Texas, and $1 billion is a lot of money, but it can only go so far when you have that many students. And so, yeah.
So the possibility is that it might benefit up to 100,000 students, probably not, but it will negatively impact 5 million students.
Yeah, because as much as I have dove into the financial statements about this, and there is lots of talk about like how this is going to get funded and things like that, which we will cover in a little bit, but there is a kind of an underlying statement of like, we want to effectively defund public schools to do this. It's not explicitly stated anywhere, but like I said, that undertone definitely exists within the statements.
But it's fiscally irresponsible, and it is centralizing bigger government around private schools. Moving on, number 2, it will end up costing, like we were talking about, it's going to end up costing taxpayers more. Not just that, not just is it a tax and spend program, but it's going to cost parents more in the long run. We've already been feeling this in public schools. Sports and other things that did not used to cost as much are starting to cost more. In the future, if this passes, like in Arizona and other states where this has passed, extra services, tutoring, journalism, all the extra things that we get to do at a reduced price or a free price here will start to cost money, just like they do in private schools. And everything in private schools is extra. Nothing is included with tuition, not even technology fees. Just incredibly fiscally irresponsible when what has been requested by so many people for so long is to fund public schools, to fund teachers. And what we are talking about, like you said, is it is defunding public schools.
Okay, number 3. So it really at the heart of it lies about who it's trying to help. This whole campaign behind this is really pushing the idea of
school choice.
Yeah, school choice. Now people who have always dreamed of going to private school will finally be able to afford it.
Except they won't.
No, it's just not how this is functioning.
No.
Like you said earlier, it's like even if people who want to go to private school, who if they cannot afford it, if they are given this voucher, $10,000 is not necessarily enough to cover the things. And just because even if it's enough to get the foot in the door, again, things are just so expensive at private schools that doesn't mean they can maintain that level. And so
at the cheapest private school in our area, which is a very lovely private school, I've subbed there a lot, tuition is $15,000 a year. Entry fees are $700. There's an additional $500 technology fee. The after school care is more expensive, and you have to provide your own transportation. And you also have to pay for uniforms, which you have to have their uniforms, which are very expensive.
Mhm.
And one of the things that drove my mom crazy when I went to private school was that you have to have their jackets too.
Mhm.
And the jackets alone are $50 to $150.
Yeah. So yeah, as like a summary there, like if you are from a low income family,
Mhm.
and even if you really have the desire to go to private school, realistically, this is not going to help actually make that happen. Instead, it's going to help fund either it's going to fund, honestly, I think a lot of it could be kids who are already being private school,
Mhm.
just getting money to pay for that. And
Yeah.
then two,
it'll be a coupon.
yeah, and there are going to be a handful of kids that may actually move from public school to private school or from homeschool to private school and get
Mhm.
funded that way, but not in the way that they are pushing for this to happen. And again, like we had mentioned earlier, it's going to come at a cost to the people that it's claiming to help.
And it's going to come at a cost to millions of students. Number 4, this was fascinating to me. It does not benefit student achievement in any way. In fact, most of the time it has a negative outcome. So state test scores, state grade level scores, in states where this program has already been enacted, students' grades have been either unchanged or damaged. It's been a detriment to them. So when school choice and vouchers were originally pushed for, they cited all of these short-term studies that showed the benefits of moving to a private education. But it was a limited number of students, a small number of students. It was not on a statewide scale. And now that we've done it at a statewide scale, all of them have been unmitigated disasters. None of them have gone well. None of these programs have helped students. None of these programs have saved taxpayers money.
Yeah, and I don't know if you specifically called it out, but so I do think it's important to give the context because Texas, we're talking about Texas. They're not the first state to implement this.
Yes.
And so
No.
there are case studies of other states who have done this.
It has gone horribly.
Yeah. Number 5, this is an ESA, not a tax refund. So kind of like what we alluded to earlier, kind of like an HSA. This is going to be an education savings account. So, and there's a lot to dive into here, but there's a lot of, you're not going to have the free choice on what you spend this money on. It would have to be pre-approved. Basically, the comptroller gets to determine what does and does not get covered with those funds. And this is the part that genuinely I was like, oh no, this is terrible. There is a clause in this bill that basically says we are able to find funding for this however we see fit, as in the Texas government. And so that immediately is a huge red flag to me because it effectively means bribing isn't even a thing. It's not illegal. It's not illegal. Bribery is not a thing because it is legal. It is in the law that they are allowed to accept money from anybody.
So a publishing company can pay them $10,000 into this fund or more, and then make millions of dollars because they are the only publishing company that you can buy books from.
Yeah. And and even if you take the publishing company out of it, you can have any major organization or corporation come in just to have more control over it than they should effectively. And that is to me one of the biggest red flags in this entire bill. Not that there's not a lot, but that one really was a big one for me.
It's extremely frustrating. You will not have control over what you get, and this is not giving you your taxes back. This is not saying you don't have to pay education taxes. You still pay into the general fund.
Yep.
And even if you think, hey, this is still good for me. My kids already attend private schools. My kids homeschool. We understand the desire to do both of those things in our current educational system. Absolutely.
Yeah.
But it is not okay to give a coupon to a few kids at the expense of millions of children. And in Texas specifically, we have already privatized the foster care system. We are foster parents. We have experienced that. It is horrendous. It has been awful. And this further injures and harms those children that we are already failing. So on that note, here's some things that you can do about it to stop the voucher bill. The number one thing is contact your representatives. I understand that that seems scary and undoable and that it takes too much time to figure out and it's too complicated, but it doesn't have to be. We've got resources listed that can help you figure out how to contact your reps. And you don't even have to call them. You can email a lot of them.
Number two is you can ask for public schools to be fully funded. They clearly, this is something I wasn't able to speak into earlier. I forgot to speak into it, but when they were talking about like the initial budgeting process for this and how the initial funds are going to come into the budget for the Texas government effectively, it just basically says, oh, we're just going to reallocate some funds. That's about the explanation they give. And if that was like, hey, we're going to say we're going to do $500,000, I'll be like, okay, that's fine. You're a big government. You can reallocate $500,000, but we're talking $1 billion.
And the per pupil spending right now in Texas is about $6,000. We are already in the bottom 10% of states for per pupil spending. We have overcrowded classrooms. We do not spend enough on each student. And they're saying, okay, we're going to spend $10,000 on some students and keeping everybody else at $6,000.
Yeah.
That's awful.
If not eventually lowering that number. Yeah.
So they are acknowledging that it costs more than they are currently spending on it.
Yep.
So also share positive public school experiences, because one of the things about this is really talking about how public schools are all woke and crazy and that is why my parents sent me to private school 30 years ago. So it's not like this is new. Just sharing positive experiences with the public school system is a wonderful thing to do. On social media, with your family, out loud. There's so much negative that has been focused on and not enough positive.
Absolutely. Number 4, share more actionable items than fear-based ones. It's again, kind of along with the last point is like, this doesn't have to come from a place of negativity. There is positivity in all of this, in public schools, in private schools, in homeschooling, but being able to share actionable items in a positive manner of this is something that's awesome that happened and here's how you can help that continue is just such a great positive way to spread that word.
Yeah, absolutely. 5, donate to local schools and local school programs that need it. We will have more. We will have a whole blog post with all of this and lists of ways you can, ideas of how you can contact your representatives and ways you can help. And if you have other ways to help, we would love to hear them. But
absolutely,
we just wanted to take a minute, and I've felt like we had a unique perspective and I've done a whole lot of research on this. So I wanted to share about this because everything's overwhelming, especially in January. Happy to get to share this with people. So
yep, hope this helps. And again, share your in the comments if you want to share your positive public school experiences, share ways that you can help. And yeah, there's good stuff to be done here. And I think that's an important thing to keep in mind.